We are live. Mademoiselle Josie, can you tell us if we are good? Can you hear me? Are we good? You do not see me anywhere. We shall see, we shall see. Let's make sure that all is good. I will check the Facebook to make sure. And it seems that I am live on the Facebook. So I would imagine that I am live absolutely everywhere. Men are So let's start by this. Men are violent by nature. I think we can all agree to that. Every man out there has the potential to be a monster, and we see it everywhere. It's all over the place. We have violence within us, and this is a fact. This is a simple fact that nobody can disagree with. Now, it's to a point where we get accused to be toxic. We have a name for this now. It's called toxic masculinity. So think about this for a second. What if I were to tell you that violence is not only men, that violence is a human behavior and not a men behavior? What do you think about this? Because this is something that we don't hear about. We don't hear about this. All we hear about is that men are violent by nature, and that because we're violent by nature, we are toxic to society. Yet, I want to tell you that we are violent by nature because we are human. And this is what I want to talk to you guys about today. So, welcome to the Nico Lagan Show. I am your host, Nico Lagan. First and foremost, thanks for joining us. This is going to be one of those episodes where I'm going to probably go ballistic because this is one of the subjects that irritates me beyond measure. Telling me that because I am a manly man, I am toxic blows my freaking mind. And you'll understand why. I'm going to go into details on this because this really needs to be discussed. We really need to stop blaming men for all our problems and start to understand that violent behaviors are human behavior. Those are something that men and women both do, and it takes control in order to stop us from doing it. But it is always there. It's always been there. It will always be there. And this is not a problem attached to men. It's just a problem attached to humans. So first and foremost, let's describe what toxic masculinity is, because no point about talking about something if we don't agree. At least we don't know what the definition is out there. So let's start with this. As per the Oxford Dictionary, toxic masculinity is a set of attitudes and ways of behaving associated with or expected of men, regarded as having a negative impact on men and on society as a whole. The destructive message associated with toxic masculinity can lead to men feeling entitled to engage in violence against women. That's number one. Let's see what verywellmind.com has to say about it. The notion that in some people's idea of manliness perpetuate domination, homophobia, and aggression. Toxic masculinity involves cultural pressures for men to behave in a certain way, and it is likely this affect all boys and men in some fashion. Finally, here's what good old Wikipedia has to say about this. Toxic masculinity is a set of certain male behaviors associated with harm to society and men themselves. Stereotypical aspects of traditional masculinity, such as social dominance, misogyny, and homophobia, can be considered toxic due in part to their promotions of violence, including sexual assaults and domestic violence. Socializing of boys often normalizes violence, such as the saying, boys will be boys, and bullying and aggression. This is the definition. So let's take those three definitions I just took and let's take them down to the most common denominator. It seems that toxic masculinity is related to negative male behaviors such as violence against women, misogyny, aggressivity, homophobia, and bullying. So, violence against women, misogyny, aggressivity, homophobia, and bullying. Those are about the 5 terms that we see over and over and over again in descriptions of toxic masculinity. Think about it. Is that something that you think is just related to men? Or is that something that women do all the time? Because that description to me is attached to any asshole out there. Any asshole, no matter if you're a man or a woman, could be described under those 5 characteristics that we just saw here. So let's see this. Let's talk. One of the best ways that we can hit this subject is by discussing violence slash aggressive behavior slash abuse. And what better data to look at than what happens in relationships between men and women, and men and men. This, what happens behind closed doors is normally the real behavior of people. So let's look at the data here and let's see what it has to say about this. I'm sure that you've heard that 1 out of 3 women are subject to abuse by their partner. For men, it's 1 out of 4. 1 out of 4 men has experienced some type of physical violence by an intimate partner. Where it gets interesting is here. Well, there's 2 things that make this interesting because 1 out of 3 women, 1 out of 4 men, we all know that men don't talk about this as often as women, and it's pretty easy to see why. There is a stigma attached to this. Can you imagine a guy my size? I'm 210 pounds right now. Can you imagine that I start going to the police and start saying that my girlfriend that's 115 pounds abuses me? They would laugh at me out of that police station. Can you really blame them? Really, can you really blame them for laughing? Although it's a topic for another discussion. The point in the matter is men don't report it because there is pride involved. There is a stigma attached to this. But 1 out of 3 women, 1 out of 4 men. So those are 25% compared to 33%. So they're pretty damn fucking close, if you ask me. And I'm ready to bet that if every man would complain about the physical abuse that they get from their partner, it would be exactly the same. 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3, or maybe more. Who knows? But where it gets really interesting is that as per socialsolutions.com, 1 out of 4 gay men experience some type of abuse coming from his partner. 1 out of 3 bisexual men reports the same thing, and 3 out of 10 heterosexual male are abused. So do you see that there's not much of a difference, right? 1 out of 4 men, 1 out of 3 bisexual men, and 1 out of 3 heterosexual men. So when it comes to men causing violence, it seems like 33% of the time that's what they do. That's what the data shows, no matter the type of partner that they have. But where it gets very interesting is when it comes to lesbians. So we're talking about women on women here. There's no men involved. 44% of lesbians in couple experience either rape, physical violence, stalking by an intimate partner, or some type of abuse. 44%. How do you explain this? How do you explain that men on men, you're looking at 33%, men on women, you're talking about 33%, women on men, you're talking about 25%, if not more, because people don't talk about it. But how do you explain 44%? There's a higher degree of violence or abuse done women to women than men to women. Explain that one for me, because we never talk about it. This is something that until a couple of days ago I was not aware of. I had to do the research and look it up, but I had no clue that this was the case because it's not something we talk about ever. We don't talk about that type of violence. We always blame men for being violent, but the data is indicating that it is a woman's problem too. Messed up, isn't it? How could this be that not only men are violent or abusive, yet this is the narrative that is being pushed by society, by media, by the school boards, by the education system? Everybody is blaming men for violence, while the data indicates that that's not the case at all. let's take it even further than this. I found a, hopefully I can share my screen right here, and I think it's really worth it for me to do so. So let's just give me a second and I will show this to you. So right here, we are looking at a graphic that's titled, for the people that are just listening to the MP3, the graphic that I'm showing here is about the type of partner abuse that male victims suffer from. And those are for adults between the age of 16 and 59. Non-physical, financial slash emotional, so psychological abuse, almost 60% of men that were part of this study indicates that they have experienced some type of psychological abuse from their partner. Threats are around 30%, force are about 45%. Sexual is not very high. It looks like it's just a few percentage. But what I find very, very interesting is that 60% of men report some type of emotional abuse. So could it be that the reason we're seeing this is because men and women do not abuse the same way? They use different tactics, if you will. Although I would argue that women are physically violent as well. But would that surprise you that women use more psychological ways of fucking with somebody while men use more of a physical way? Look at her nature. I don't think that's a big surprise to anybody. That makes a whole lot of fucking sense, doesn't it? Now, there's two terms I want to put out there. There's two terms I think it's worth explaining, and those two terms are misogyny and misandry. I didn't know what misandry was until a couple of days ago. I never looked into it. I I think it's worth me speaking about it because if I didn't know, chances are there's people out there that do not know, and I think that's a term that we should use. That's a term I'm going to add to my dictionary because I think it's worth doing. So misogyny is, let's look at the definition. Misogyny is hatred of, contempt for, or prejudice against women. Misandry is the complete opposite. It is hatred, contempt for, or prejudice against men. For what it is simply sex. You could almost see it as sexist between being sexist towards women is misogyny, being sexist towards men is misandry, right? Let's agree to the bare minimum of the definition, and that's what it is. What I find ironic is it's okay to call a man toxic because he is a man. It is okay to assume that a man is toxic just because he is a man. But if I would say something along the lines that a woman is very emotional, so it's normal that she's crying all the time, that's sexist. That is me being misogynist towards women. But yet, the actual term toxic masculinity is a sexist, if not a misandry term, which makes it very ironic, doesn't it? Because they're telling me that I cannot be misogynist against women, but yet toxic masculinity is indeed a word that is sexist towards men. Absolutely, absolutely. It blows my mind. And the other thing that completely makes no sense to me is that all of the traits that I talked about earlier, let's rename them again because I think it's worth saying them again. Men are accused of being toxic because of all the negative things that we do, such as violence against women, misogyny, aggressivity, homophobia, and bullying. But yet, those are the characteristics of a weak man. I don't know if you've ever heard the expression that says that if you believe a strong man is toxic, wait until you see what a weak man is capable of. Because violence against women, to me, that's a weak man. That's a weak person that would do that. Same thing for being sexist, same thing for being a bully, same thing for being violent for no reason. Those are all traits of weak men. Yet, when you take that same man that is by nature violent, but you teach him how to channel that aggressivity, that power, that over the top power that a man has floating in his veins because of that beautiful thing called testosterone, we forget that it is for those exact reasons, or because of those exact reasons, that the society that we now live in North America is even possible. The violence or the aggressivity that we see in men once channeled for beautiful things like becoming a provider, like becoming a protector for his family, are the reasons why this society was built in the first place. If it wasn't for the men that are ready to do the work that needs to get done in order to create, maintain, support a society like ours, this would not exist. There would be no privileged person like the people calling me toxic to survive. Those people would have no way of surviving because this society is built, maintained by strong men that learned that they can channel that aggression and make it for the greater good. Do a job that they don't like just because they want to support their family. Those are all masculine traits that we never talk about. And this is the only reason this society exists. It blows my fucking mind that this is seen as toxic when, you know what? Let me ask you this. If there are ladies out there or men that believe that men are toxic, how do you explain the fact that when your house is on fire, who do you call? Think about it. Call a fireman. What's a fireman? A strong man that's ready to die, a selfless, strong man that's ready to die for you, that's ready to jump into fire to go save you. When you're under attack, when something happens in your life where you don't know what to do, who do you call? If you need somebody removed from your house because they're causing you damage, who do you call? If you don't feel secure somewhere because there might be somebody trying to hurt you, who do you call? A strong man with a gun. Somebody that's selfless, trying to do the work, really ready to do the work, even if that means dying for you. And why do you think that is? Because he is violent by nature. He knows that there are violent people out there. And he knows that some people like him that learn to channel it for the greater good need to help others that needs help. This is what a good man is. Yet those same characteristics, when displayed by strong men, are considered toxic by weak men and weak women that do not have them under control. The irony is astonishing. The irony blows my fucking mind. It absolutely blows my mind. Did you know? I'm gonna finish on this um, when it comes to good men building this society, because this is something I say all the time, but I only repeat it because I know this. I know this to be so fucking important. We need to remember that it is men, strong men, that build this society and that still maintains it today. And I want you to be aware of this, that 10 times more men die on the job than women do. Because the four most dangerous job on the planet are done 90 to 95% by men. And this is not because women can't do them. It's because women choose not to do them. And men, being men, just want to provide and be good protectors. So they do what they have to do in order to support their family. So keep that in mind next time you're thinking about calling a man toxic for being a strong man, and look at yourself in the mirror and admit to yourself that maybe your views are the problem and not the man that just tries to support his family. As per verywellfamily.com, there's two types of bullying, because I believe that we need to explore where violence starts. And there's nothing more, I don't want to say pure because that makes it sound good, but it definitely is not. But Children tend to do what they do without thinking too much about it. They just tend to act their unconscious mind. So that's what I mean by pure. If you look at the type of bullying that you see in schools, it shows a lot about how men and women are so different from each other. If you look at what verywellfamily.com says, there's two types of bullying. There's physical bullying, and there's something called rational aggression. Or sorry, something called relational aggression. Physical, I don't think I need to explain that. That's pretty that's pretty common. But what's relational aggression? Is that something you've ever heard? Because I didn't. I knew that there were different type of bullying, but I never heard of that word before. And all it means is that it can be described as verbal assault, ostracizing, spreading rumors, gossiping. And here's a shocker for you. Women and men don't bully the same way. Yes, there are gender rules. That's basically exactly what I'm saying. There are ways that men act and women act as well. And look around you. This can't be surprising to you that men are more violent physically, but yet women are more violent or abusive psychologically. I'm not going to go into talking if one is worse than the other. I don't have the data to confirm what I'm saying, but I do have an opinion, but let's just agree that women tend to bully others using psychological tactics when men are more physical. I think we can all agree to that, can't we? But let's look at the statistics. Let's look at what the data shows us when it comes to the different types of bullying. As per pacer.org, 6% of male students report physical bullying and 4% of girls report physical bullying. But where it gets interesting is that 18% of girls report being subject of rumors, while 9% of boys report the same thing, be having rumors spread about them. As we just learned, spreading rumors is based off relational aggression, which is one of the two types of bullying. And this is where I think the problem resides, is the fact that we associate bullying with just the physical aspect of things. Yet, if you take into consideration the different types of bullying that are done by men opposed to women, we see that women are prone to bully almost three times. Actually, not almost, three times three times as much as men. 18% of women are bullied emotionally compared to 6% of boys are bullied physically. That's three times more. Think about it for a second. We were talking earlier that 44% of lesbians report abusive behaviors from their partner compared to one out of three women, 33%. So 11% more lesbians report violent behaviors from their partner than women do when they're in a heterosexual relationship. And now we're learning that three times more women are prone to relational aggression, which is psychological aggression, compared to physical aggression. Isn't it interesting that women seem to be abusive not only as much as men do, but more? It's just that we don't consider different types of aggression, it seems like. That we only believe that physical aggression is the only type of aggression that we see out there. Yet, emotional, I would argue that emotional aggression is even worse than physical. I would argue that these are types of aggression that will leave more of a mark on an individual than physical. Physical, you will heal. And believe me, I've been bullied as a teenager, so I know. Yes, you're going to be banged up. Yes, you're going to hurt. Yes, it's going to expose to you that you're a coward, that you don't know how to defend yourself. But I'm ready to argue anyone out there that emotional aggression, emotional abuse is worse than physical abuse. You tell me what you think. You leave me a comment in the comment section and you tell me what you think. But in my opinion, and I will do the research to make sure, I would argue that emotional abuse is worse than physical. There's another thing that is worth mentioning when it comes to abuse is the fact that look around you and you'll notice, pay attention, and you'll notice that violence against men is normalized. How many times in real life have I seen a woman hit her husband? It might be a smack to the face, it might be just pushing him, it might be any other type of physical contact like smacking him in the chest. Look in movies, it's the same thing. Women in movies smack men for saying something they don't agree with, for whatever the fuck the reason might be. Is it's not even important to be frank. It's really normalized though. Like let's call a spade a spade. Violence against men is normalized. We tend to laugh at it. Like a woman smacks a guy around, one clap, this is normal. But if a man would have to defend himself and smack that woman back, but that's violence against women, but it is okay for them to smack a guy around. Absolutely ludicrous. Absolutely fucking ludicrous. Violence is violence no matter if it's a man doing it to a man doing it to a man, a woman doing it to a woman, or a woman doing it to a woman. But those are the biases that we see today. So if we go back to everything that was discussed today, I think we can agree that toxic masculinity is bullshit. Are men can men display behaviors that are toxic? Absolutely. Absolutely 100%. But if there's something that we can learn from what we spoke about here today is the fact that women are no better. It is in women's nature to be abusive just like men are. We do it differently, but the point of the matter is that it is still done by both sexes. It is done by both genders. And I would argue that women are more abusive than men, and the data shows that. And I'll link my blog to this video so that you can go see all the references. I will list every single reference that I used in this podcast today to show you so that you can go check. If you don't think that what I'm saying is true, just go check the data. It's there. I will make it available. So why is it that men are always being called toxic nowadays, but yet women are excused for their violent behaviors? The same, it seems that the same women that calls me toxic displays aggression aggression behaviors, but yet they're never called up for it. And this is what I think is bullshit. This is what I think needs to change. And this is what I think we need to point out is women are no better than men. This is not a men problem. It's a human problem. It is something that if it goes unchallenged, if it goes uncontrolled, will not get any better. This is not a problem that's going away by itself, but by telling men that they are aggressive, that they need to be more like women, is bullshit. Because women are just as aggressive, just in a different way. So think about it. Let me know what your comments are. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know if I'm full of shit, or if you do agree with me, or if you just want to debate. I love to speak to every single one of you. So make sure to leave me a comment below. And I also want to speak about that. I think we can all agree on this. If you have an opinion that's similar to mine, you know that social media is always shadow banning or blocking the type of content that I speak about. This is why I started my own blog on my webpage at nicolagan.com so that I can speak about what I really want to speak about, what Facebook's, Instagram, and all those nice platforms out there are not letting me speak about. So if you really want to know what my opinions are, if you really want to have a clear, honest discussion about this, go to my website, nicolagan.com, comment on my blogs, or there's another thing that we can do, or that's another thing you can do, is to join the private group that I created for men. So if you're a manly man and you want to have a platform where you can talk about manly shit without worrying about being canceled, join our group. It's a private group. I choose every single person that can be part of it, but look for the Legion of Men on Facebook. I want to thank every single one of you out there. I want you to know that I'm extremely grateful for you watching, listening to this, commenting. Just know that I appreciate every single one of you. And until next time, remember that the world is changed one man at a time, and it takes one man to change the world.